Hello everyone, and welcome back to another video. Today I'll be bringing you a basic rundown of each of the support professions with comments on their strengths and weaknesses. The basic design philosophy of Guild Wars 2 states that each of the 9 professions can bring some variety of damage, control, and support/healing. But for the sake of this video, I will be pinpointing the professions that I believe have substantial support capabilities. The professions that I will be examining today include the Guardian, the Revenant, the Ranger, the Necromancer, and the Elementalist. I will also examine their elite specializations when needed. This video will not declare one profession as being better than the rest. It will simply be making observations on their support mechanics and offer feedback. The profession that is the best is up to you and how you play them. For clarity's sake, this video was made on April 5th, 2018, and any further updates to the professions and their support capabilities may change certain critiques of this video. Hopefully, any further changes will be for the better of the game. Without further ado, let's begin. First up, the Guardian. The Guardian is a heavy armor profession that emphasizes the importance of the group. Guardians tend to prefer the rigor of close quarters combat, but have a couple options when they want to turn the tables to a ranged battle. Firstly, I will be mentioning the support capabilities of the base Guardian. The profession mechanic of Virtues grants the Guardian the option to sacrifice a personal buff for a group buff. Virtues of Resolve and Courage are beneficial for the group. For the weapons, the base Guardian has the luxury of having all the needed support weapons without having to elite specialize. The weapons that any support Guardian would need are the Mace and Shield and the Staff. These are 2 sets of weapons that offer strong support capabilities, with the Mace offering strong healing sustain on the auto attack and regeneration on the second ability, and the Staff offering a light aura and decent stacks of might. When looking at the utilities, the support options start to spread out amongst differing categories of utilities. This makes it slightly difficult to pinpoint and focus in on a certain line for support. Shouts offer plentiful access to boons. Hold the Line and Retreat offer regeneration, protection, and Aegis, which are strong supportive boons. The Heal skill, Receive the Light, gives the Guardian a strong conal heal with a moderate cooldown. Now to take a look at the Path of Fire elite specialization, the Firebrand. Firebrands have a dual focus on condition damage and sustained support. For the option of support, the Firebrand will focus on using their tomes, which replace the base virtue system. Tomes are a returning feature for the Guardian, which were once removed from the game. The 2 tomes that will be used the most are the tomes of Resolve and Courage. Resolve will give the Firebrand 5 healing skills, and Courage will give 5 skills focusing on control and protection. Along with tomes, the Firebrand has a selection of mantras for utility skills. For Firebrands who want to become a bulwark of support, take the mantras of Solace, Lore, Potence, and Liberation. The trait lines a Guardian should take for a supportive role are Honor, Virtues, and Firebrand, if applicable. Now for the pros of Guardian support. Guardians offer great support for melee groups, making it easier to focus in on specific allies. They also have heavy access to boons via the Shout system, giving those who prefer this playstyle an easier time. Also, the support weapons are available for base Guardians, making it easier for new players to jump into this role. And for the Firebrand, tomes offer a huge healing boost, where they would otherwise lack in the basic virtue system. Now for the cons of the support Guardian. Despite having easy access to the support weapons early on, the Staff is clunky in its functionality, making it difficult to support at ranged. The auto attack is meant to be used up close, but the other skills have a large range indicator of 1,200 units. The base virtue systems are much more bland and underpowered in comparison to both the Dragon Hunter and Firebrand elite specializations, and should use a buff and or rework at some point. The healing/support utility skills are too spread out across all types for the base Guardian, making it very difficult to pinpoint certain traits you want to take to emphasize a support role. For example, in the meditation utility line, Guardians have a spell known as Merciful Intervention, which is an extremely strong support skill. However, the rest of the utility skills are much more selfish, or they're focused on dealing direct damage to enemies. Moving on to the fellow soldier class to the Guardian, the Revenant. Revenants are heavy armored knights of the mists. They can call on an array of Tyrian legends to aid them in combat. The Revenant does not come with the free-to-play version of Guild Wars 2, and is unlocked through buying Heart of Thorns or Path of Fire. The main legend responsible for healing is Ventari, which is available to the base Revenant. The legend of Ventari has the unique mechanic of summoning a tablet where all the utility skills are focused around. Every utility skill has an aspect of healing or situational defense. For the utility skills that come with Ventari, we have Project Tranquility, which summons Ventari's tablet that will remain stationary and pulse a heal every 3 seconds. This skill will flip over into Ventari's Will, which moves the tablet to a targeted location and heals allies it passes through. The skill heals for much more and is on a lower cooldown. The first of the utility slots is Protective Solace. Summons a bubble around the tablet which destroys incoming projectiles. Secondly, we have Natural Harmony, which pulses a larger heal around the tablet and will apply Alacrity to allies if the player is using the Salvation trait line. And thirdly, we have Purifying Essence, which will cleanse conditions around allies and heal them for how many conditions they have removed. And finally, for the elite skill, Ventari has Energy Expulsion. This explodes the tablet into 10 fragments around the battlefield, which can be consumed by allies for moderate healing. To complement the wide array of healing and supportive skill Ventari has, the weapon the Revenant should be using is the Staff. The Staff will summon orbs when auto-attacking, and these orbs can offer a small amount of healing. Renewing Wave, the 4th skill, also grants a point-blank AoE around the Revenant. Now, while there isn't an elite specialization that I believe entirely emphasizes support, I would consider the Herald as being the most supportive of the 2 elite specializations the Revenant has access to. Now, to briefly mention the Herald elite specialization, or more commonly referred to as Glint, the main aspect of support that is available to Heralds is Facet of Nature, which increases concentration by a stat increase of 500. This skill can be activated once more to blast out a wide array of boons to allies nearby. Additionally, Heralds gain access to the Shield, an offhand weapon, which brings more healing and boon application. If you haven't already caught on, the Herald is a master of boons and emphasizes keeping them up on others for as long as possible. The trait lines for support would be Salvation, Invocation, and Herald. Or you could additionally go for the Renegade if you would like to focus on Alacrity, which is only available to Path of Fire players. And now for the pros of Revenant support. While playing Ventari, you have a high potential for spike healing when using your tablet. Also with Ventari, the skills have a lower energy costs, which makes it much more flexible for new users. In its design, the tablet is extremely useful when trying to heal clusters of allies grouped together. And while playing Herald, you have a really nice time applying boons and keeping boons on allies for a longer period of time. Now moving into the cons of the Revenant. Ventari has an extremely high skill cap, with the tablet having a really small radius of influence. And if allies get out of this small radius, it makes it very punishing if you miss your abilities. The Herald does not have a complementary main hand weapon to the shield, and you're really only left with the sword, which is primarily a power DPS weapon. If you are more Condi, you can go with the mace. However, it doesn't necessarily help with the support category. The Herald is sort of a hybrid as well, which leaves Ventari in an awkward position where one legend has extremely high healing potential, while the other has more utility-focused, smaller heals. Moving on to the only medium armored profession on this list, the Ranger. The Ranger is a medium armored adventurer who is a master with long-ranged weaponry. The Ranger is almost always accompanied with an animal companion. and the Ranger arguably does not have a competent base support option, aside from the juvenile Fernhound and sparse regeneration. The Ranger does shine in the healing department when the Ranger Elite specializes into the Druid, which is only available to players who own Heart of Thorns. Now for the Druid's Weapon, when specialized, gains access to the Staff. The Staff is a trustworthy healing weapon that can heal allies in a line, cast wisps to heal melee allies, rushes the player to a target location blasting a heal, and can summon a curtain that turns projectiles into healing bolts. The Druid Elite specialization gains access to Glyph utility skills, which has dual functionalities depending on whether or not the Druid is in Celestial Avatar form, the new profession mechanic. The heal skill, Glyph of Rejuvenation, will heal the player for more, and allies for less, but while in Celestial Avatar mode, it will heal allies for more and the player for less. Glyph of Alignment will deal damage to enemies, but in Celestial Avatar mode, it will heal allies and remove conditions. Glyph of Empowerment will increase outgoing damage, and in Celestial Avatar mode, will increase healing. And the Elite Glyph of Unity will redirect damage to enemies in basic form, but in Celestial Avatar, will heal allies whenever the player is healed. The glyphs listed above are considered to be more focused on healing, while the other glyphs the Druid gains are more situational or utility-based. For the new profession mechanic, the Druid gains access to Celestial Avatar mode. This will replace the Druid's weapons with a set of 5 skills focused on healing. The first skill, Cosmic Ray, is a small AoE heal that is spammable. The second, Seed of Life, is a larger AoE heal on a short delay which explodes, blinding enemies and healing allies. The third skill, Lunar Impact, is a larger AoE heal that does a chunky heal and dazes enemies. Rejuvenating Tides is an AoE heal around the player that ticks heals. And the final skill, fifth skill, Natural Convergence, pulses damage and slows enemies. The traits I would take for support would be Skirmishing, Nature Magic, and the Druid, if applicable. Now to discuss the pros of the Druid. The Druid has heavy AoE heals while in Celestial Avatar mode, making it great for wide access to allies. It also has sustained healing while using the staff, and it also is pretty good at might stacking with one of its traits, Grace of Land, and additionally it has fantastic mobility. Moving on to the cons of the Druid, I really couldn't make a longer list. These are the only things I've come up with. Number 1, possibly more difficult to apply a wide variety of boons depending on the weapons you use. And secondly, they have a limited selection of pets that offer healing or more supportive roles. And that's really it. The pet thing is a bit more minor than other things that the Druid brings. Moving on to the first of the light armor professions, we have the Necromancer. The Necromancer is a light armored scholar profession who dabbles in dark magic and is a primarily selfish profession. The base version of the Necromancer doesn't offer too many options if someone is looking to play more supportively, aside from a couple well skills. However, with Path of Fire, the Scourge specialization offers more supportive options to the Necromancer. The Scourge sacrifices their Death Shroud to summon Sand Shades, which affect multiple allies around the battlefield. The Scourge specializes in a unique form of support known as Barrier, which acts as temporary health preventing damage from directly affecting allies. For the weapon that the Scourge gains, they gain a Torch, which offers condition damage but also will grant might to allies around the enemy target. The Staff might be the best support option as it will apply moderate regeneration. For the utilities that you should focus on for support, we have the healing skill, Sand Flare, which grants a large barrier to yourself and to allies around you. Desiccate, which is a nice skill to generate life force, and AoE might. Serpent Siphon, which strikes enemies and then summons barrier orbs to be picked up by allies. And finally, Sandswell. It's a mid-range portal that will grant a single application of barrier. And for the ultimate skill, we have Ghastly Breach, which is an AoE boon strip skill and also applies more might to allies. The primary function for Necromancers and their support capabilities comes with the Shades. The Shades have a moderate amount of support, but overall feel a bit more targeted towards condition damage. The first skill I'd like to mention is Nefarious Favor, which cleanses conditions to allies around the players and Shades. And secondly, and finally, Sand Cascade, which poses a moderate barrier to allies around the player and the Shades. The trait lines I would take for support include Blood Magic, Soul Reaping, and the Scourge, if applicable. Now for the pros of the Scourge. Moderate, but definitely interesting. Firstly, it takes a new look at support with the barrier mechanics. Secondly, to describe barrier, it will mitigate damage rather than fixing the issues of damage. Thirdly, it has decent might application if people spec and approach the specialization with the mindset of might stacking. And fourthly, it's able to resurrect down allies quickly to prevent them from being defeated. Now for the cons list. This might be the largest out of all the support professions. Number 1, barrier application is not consistent and when I say kind of, is a bit wonky. Secondly, might application could use a slight improvement. Other professions are much more capable of might stacking and making it permanent might. Thirdly, it does not have substantial healing in some situations. Now, if Scourge is going to be a specialization that emphasizes mitigating damage and preventing it from affecting players, it should do that well. I personally believe that it doesn't, and if it doesn't, it should have moderate amount of healing to fix the damage issues, but overall, it doesn't. Fourthly, it does not have a weapon that is proficient in the support playstyle. The best I could think of is the staff with the second skill, applying regeneration. And finally, Serpent Siphon, one of the Scourge specialization utility skills, is limited by enemies, and that means that it can't get the most use out of it if there aren't enough enemies around, and the orbs disappear way too quickly. I think it would be better suited if the Serpent Siphon skill directs towards allies instead of enemies. And the final profession that I'll be talking about today is the Elementalist. The Elementalist is a light armored scholar who focuses on mastering the elements of Tyria. For the purpose of simplicity, I'll be focusing on water attunement and the Tempest elite specialization that comes with Heart of Thorns, as they offer the most in healing and general utility. In general, the Elementalist is a profession that offers many playstyles and is proficient in supporting their allies without elite specializations. The Tempest allows the Elementalist to offer auras to allies, which grant them specific effects. The Tempest is best suited with close to mid-range fights, as their shouts have a limited radius, but the staff can be used for more spiked, chunky heals. They also gain access to overload skills, which are more powerful spells that affect an area. The Tempest uses the offhand Warhorn to apply boons to allies and call upon the elements to heal and control the battle. While in water attunement, the Warhorn calls upon a traveling water field and a crashing wave to push back enemies. For their utilities, they gain access to shouts. The healing skill, Wash the Pain Away, cascades healing around the player in rings. The closer allies are to the Tempest, the more healing they will receive. Flash Freeze will chill enemies and grant a frost aura to allies, which reduces damage they receive. Feel the Burn burns enemies and grants allies a fire aura, which will burn enemies when the allies are struck. Eye the Storm will break allies out of a stun or CC. Aftershock cripples and immobilizes enemies and grants a magnetic aura to allies, which will reflect projectiles. And their elite skill, Rebound, heals allies if they take lethal damage, and they will grant an aura to allies if no lethal damage is given to any ally. The trait lines for support that I would take would be Water, Arcane, and the Tempest. And now to mention the pros about the Tempest healing. The Tempest healer has high spike healing potential if they take the Dagger Warhorn combination. They have immense utility with the access to auras, and have high ranged healing if they take the staff. Overloading, especially in water, offers chunky heals and auras if traded. The support integration with the base Elementalist is really a nice touch, as it allows the Elementalist to adapt to different situations and mechanics of bosses. Now to briefly mention the cons of the Tempest. The weapon skills of the Scepter seem somewhat lacking, as the Scepter is a primarily hybrid weapon, a jack of all trades but a master of none. Number 2, depending on the weapon set, once you've used all your healing skills, the Tempest can be left out to dry and forced to watch the fight as you wait for your healing skills to come off a cooldown. And finally, some people have taken issue to the Tempest traits, as their theme and design seems a little skewed in terms of if they are support or if they are damage. So that is more based on personal opinion. In the spirit that this is labeled Showdown, I might as well make some personal comparisons. Once again, this isn't a statement and does not completely define how a profession plays in terms of support. But for my ranking system, I have 3 tiers. The highest tier being optimal, the middle tier known as moderate, and the lowest tier I have labeled as lacking. Doesn't mean it's terrible, but just means I see room for improvement. Starting with optimal, I would say these spots are reserved for the Druid and the Tempest. The Druid is just a trustworthy healer, and the Tempest is someone who has extremely large, chunky spiked heals. So congratulations to the Druid and the Tempest, also known as the Ranger and the Elementalist, for the optimal spots. For the moderate, I would put the Guardian and the Revenant. For the Guardian, if we look at Firebrand, I would say it has some nice sustained healing in some situations, but the main issue I take with the Guardian is the staff and their base Guardian utilities being so spread out. And for the Revenant, I think that their heals are very strong. However, with the added skill cap of the tablet, it makes it very punishing if people are not in a small radius. And finally, for the lacking, last but not least, is the Scourge, also known as the Necromancer. I think that the support ideas are very, very interesting and have or could possibly have a wonderful place in Guild Wars 2. I think there are just some kinks that are still persistent in the Scourge specialization that should be worked out. Primarily, what I take issue with is that there isn't a Grandmaster that is targeted towards support. I think having that Grandmaster would be very important, as many of these support roles are defined by their Grandmaster traits. Thank you so much, everyone. I just wanted to briefly mention how I accumulated my knowledge and how I made my decisions. I examined profession themes, their abilities, community beliefs, and developer comments in order to pick the professions for this video. Once again, this does not mean that one is better than the other. You might believe that one profession is much better at support while the other one isn't. Everyone has their own personal beliefs. But at the end of the day, there are certain set in stone parameters that we have to work with. So I hope you all enjoyed. It was a lot of work, but I had a lot of fun. I'm hoping to do one for condition DPS, power DPS, and perhaps even tanking / control. I think this is a lot of fun, and I hope to see you guys in the comments section fighting it out. Don't actually fight, but discuss your thoughts on certain supports, or perhaps mention a profession I didn't mention. That'd be fun. But I hope everyone has a wonderful day. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye, everyone. Mwah.